Tom Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Serious testing, successful hunting. Today I'm going to be testing the SEVR 1.5 with my 2022 Broadhead testing regimen. So I've used this head quite a bit over the years. I've taken a lot of animals with it and I've put it through a lot of different tests. It's always proven to be the most durable mechanical broadhead of any of them, and I'm always looking for the most durable one, so one day it may be dethroned, but so far it's really kind of reigned supreme in that area. But I want to see how it performs in my new testing regimen, and it'll be a good kind of a good baseline to see how different heads score and how heads that have scored really well in the past do with this new testing regimen. So let's zoom on in here and go through some of the design features and specifications for those who aren't familiar with it, and then let's put them to the test and see what the overall cumulative score is and what the Lusk grade in golden arrows is at the end. And so as always, I'm using my Bowtech SR6 set at 72 pounds, and I'm using Bishop FOC King arrows, 460 grains, and then for the really hard impact shots, I'm using the Bishop Fad Eliminators. Let's check out the SEVR 1.5. Here's a good look at the SEVR 1.5 in the closed position, and if you're not familiar with it, I'll go through some of the design features and specifications here. First of all, it's all titanium. The ferrule is constructed of a single piece of titanium, and that has a good strength to weight ratio. That's why they do that. Has this chisel tip to give it extra strength, and it's quite thick there to prevent rollover. And it cuts, this chisel tip cuts in the opposite plane perpendicularly to the main blade. So you're getting another third of an inch, 0.33 inches of cut in that direction, as well as the cut from the main blades, which is 1.5 inches in its fully open position. Now, another thing I want to show you before I show you about the opening and some of the other features is it has this hole right here in the middle. And this hole is designed to be used for practicing shooting with this broadhead. So it comes with a little set screw and a little Allen wrench, and you screw the screw into that hole, and that locks the blades in place. And so then you can practice and shoot as much as you want with the exact broadhead you're going to be hunting with, and none of the blade edge is ever exposed. This isn't part of the blade edge. So then you just have to remember to take that little screw out before you go out in the field, or it won't open in an animal, okay? So make sure you do that. But that's kind of a cool extra feature to be able to practice with the exact broadhead and make sure that it's flying well for you. Although, as you can see in the closed position, it is extremely streamlined. This is one of, if not the best flying mechanical heads or heads of any kind that there are. Like the Thorn is really good. This is really good because there's just so little surface area there. Now, the way it works in blade deployment, it's a rear deploying head, so you get a good entrance hole, is like any gator style head like this. This area of the blades is not sharp at all by design because they want it to catch on the hide as it penetrates. And it needs something like that, like it needs a really taut hide in order to open. Sometimes people shoot it into gel or other mediums and it doesn't open properly and they think something's wrong with it, but it does with hide. I mean, I've just never seen it not open like that, even in my testing, and I'll do a test of it just to show you, but I shoot it through taut hide and it opens really well. I mean, I suppose anything can happen in the field, but that's the design, to be opened on hide, not on a target. So the way it works is when it faces this pressure here on these blades, you see the rear blades start to deploy and they force that O-ring off. Now I'm going to go ahead and open it here and show you. And then here's the head in the full open position. That's what it looks like when it's fully open. Now, some really unique things about it that I want to go through. First of all, is the way the blades open. They open and they lock in an open position. They're not barbed because they can be pulled back this way, okay? So it's not considered barbed, but they are locked open, and that keeps the cutting diameter constant. Whereas every other gator style blade as it penetrates through, if there's not pressure on those front little wing butts and blade butts, then it's going to close. And so you see that happen a lot with those gator style heads as they go through an area with less resistance, those blades can close. That doesn't happen with the SEVR, at least most of the time, because the blades lock and they can't close. I can't close them like that. And then another feature about it is the back end of these blades connect with each other right here. And what that does is that, that creates the lock, and it creates the ability to pivot like this. And the reason they do that is a fewfold. First of all, they want it to be able to go straight through an animal. Deflection can happen when, especially a two-blade broadhead, hits a bone in a certain angle. I don't know if you've ever seen it happen. I've seen it happen. The entire arrow just can be deflected inside the animal and miss the vitals entirely. That's not going to happen as readily with this, because if one blade is impacted by heavy bone, then it just forces this blade back, and then this head cuts out farther. And then so it's getting less cut than it would in the fully open position, but it's getting more cut than just half of the cut, because this other blade is forced back and sticks out pretty far. Then as soon as there's pressure on it, it doesn't take much pressure at all. I mean, it swings so freely. The blades go back to their full cutting diameter of 1.5 inches. So in a good way, it prevents there from being deflection. Oh, and on an angled shot, it prevents it from being deflected on an angled shot as well. Rather than a blade causing it to kick off of an animal at a deflection, the blade can just pull back, slide back like that, and then it can penetrate freely. The drawback of it is you're getting less cut if the blade is forced back like that, whether on an angled entrance or if it hits a rib or something, you're going to have a bit smaller of a cut until it gets back to its regular position, which is really fast because it just can constantly move back and forth. But everything's a trade-off. That's just how the design works. Now, there's another thing that's really interesting, a lot of people don't understand, is the way these two blades connect right here not only creates that lock and enables that pivot, but they connect at an angle. And what that does is if there's a really hard impact on both blades, like you hit bone, you hit, rib or something like that on both blades, then rather than the blades bending or breaking, this little connection point, one slides over the other. And it takes a lot of pressure to do that, but it absorbs the pressure that would have caused the breaking or the bending of the blades. So again, that's a real strength, that where other heads hit hard things, especially mechanicals, and the blades can bend terribly or break off, having a way smaller cut, these don't do that nearly as readily. I mean, they're the most durable mechanical broadhead I've ever tested because the blades overlap like that and absorb a bit of the energy. Now, they can overlap so hard that it's really hard to get them like unhooked. Like you got to pull them back. I've had to use pliers to pull them back this way to get them out of that overlapping connection there. Now, another thing people often don't understand is how to close them, okay? And I can see it's a bit confusing, but there's this little overlap that I'm talking about. Now, in a hard impact, one blade overlaps the other in that direction, but to close it, I just use my thumbnail, and it works most of the time. You just slide it back the other way. One blade goes under the other, and it goes back to its closed position with the O-ring. Oh, another thing people don't understand sometimes is they think this is like damage to the blade. Okay, you see that little niche? Okay, and it's on the other side too. That's just because that's where the O-ring lines up. So if in your quiver or something there's pressure on that and it opens a little bit, it's not going to cut the O-ring because it has that little bit of a divot. Okay, so that's the design of the SEVR 1.5. Now, another thing I want to comment on is in the open position, you notice these wing butts here, these blade butts that are the deploying mechanism, they cover a little bit of that blade right there. And so I've heard people say like, well, you know, you're not getting nearly the cut and blood trails are terrible because it covers up that blade. Well, one, that's just how gator style heads work, okay? They all have that. And even slip cams like Rage, they have a portion where there's a butt of another blade that is there, and that's just what keeps them deployed. And really, it's pretty insignificant in what I've found. And if it is a problem, we'll see it in the penetration test. So I'm eager to test the penetration and see how well it does. But in the field, in all of my use, man, I've never had a problem with blood trails. It penetrates very well, and I've had great blood trails in all the different instances I've used it, and I've taken a lot of animals all over the world with it. So, but I did want to point that out, that it's not as big of a deal as people think. I've seen other videos where people talk about how they push it really slowly into something and measure the pounds of force it takes for the blades to deploy and comment about how terrible that is. It takes, I don't know what they said, 70 pounds or something like that to deploy. But you know what? Like, the way things work at high speed is totally different than the way they work at slow speed like that. At a high speed, believe me, it does not absorb. It doesn't take 70 pounds of force to get it to deploy the blades, okay? It wouldn't penetrate at all if it took that much. But things happen in a different way at high speed than they do at low speed like that. $275. The SEVR 1.5 penetrated 6.5 inches. $275. It penetrated through 57 layers. Here you can see the impact on the leather, and it reached its full opening cut size of 1.5 inches just on impact. Here's the head after going through the MDF 3 times and then through the steel plate 2 times. And as you can see, it's in very good shape. A little bit of signs of wear on some of the blade portions, and the tip is a little tiny bit blunted compared to how it started. But other than that, it's in fantastic condition. And here's the holes that it made in the steel plate. Really nice holes. Not the full cutting diameter, but still decent holes at the same time. Man, that head really stuck in the concrete. It took me quite a while with a chisel and a hammer to get it out. Here's the 1.5 after going through the MDF and the steel plate and into the concrete. And as you can see, it held together very well. The very tip got curled a bit there. You can see it right there, and that's what you see wobble, just the tip. Otherwise, the ferrule is straight. The blades are intact. They got a bit nicked up there where they impacted the concrete, and that was from the steel as well. And it's kind of a pet peeve, but it's difficult to close them back. Once they lock up like that, you got to use that little tool to get them back. But otherwise, man, just impressive durability. Even if you compare this to a fixed blade head, it's more durable than the vast majority of fixed blade heads, and it's just in a class by itself when it comes to mechanical durability. So what'd you think of the SEVR 1.5? Yeah, you know, I wasn't surprised that it performed really well. I wasn't sure with the new test regimen that I have in the new scoring system how it was going to come out, but it scored extremely well, and just again proves to be just one of the most durable heads there is. let alone the most durable mechanical head. So flies great, penetrates well, super durable. This is really a winner of a Broadhead. And like I've shared before, I do have a discount code for SEVR. If you type in LUSK5, L-U-S-K-F-I-V-E, then you save $5 on any order. And hey, every little bit helps. So if that interests you, feel free to use it. But again, great job, SEVR.